All right. Ready? Uh, Without going into this whole thing, because there's one, I'll put out the video maybe tomorrow. This is going to create a data set called summary class, which is going to have some summary statistics in it. Okay, so let me just run that. Okay, so this is how the output is rendered. But if you go to the data set, um, it's going to have mean weight and mean height for each stage. That's what I wanted to create. I wanted to create mean weight and mean height and understand what the mean values are. Okay, now if I want to merge the mean values back into my original data set, I can use the merge. And this is something you might do a lot in your work. If you were working with data, hey, I want to see what's the summarized value of this. Okay, so you can calculate the mean, and then um, you can insert re-merge the data back into the original data. Okay, so I have summary class which has mean, and I have my original class. Um, I'm simply going to say use what we've learned so far. I'm going to put it back in. So if you look at the output data set, there are some automatic variables that got created. So I'm simply not going to include those. I'm only going to keep the variables that I actually meant to have, which is age, mean weight, and mean height. And I want to summarize, put the summary back into each record. Okay, so I'm gonna do a merge on the original data set. In is in that, and then I have a summary class. Um, but in this case, I really didn't need the if in class because this data set itself was created from this data set. So there's going to be no new records in here that are not already here. Okay, so this programming logic is completely not required. Um, so, but anyway, I had it in there, but it's not required if you look at the data. So, okay, I understood now. That makes sense. Okay, so I take my words back live. So if I go back here, let me create this one more time. This is how, this is the type um, and the type variable. So there is proc means creates it at overall level, and that's what that was, and that's why I had that code in there. Now I remember. So I did need it. Um, so I'm saying only give me the value if it's in class. Okay, so now, if the record had contributions from my class data set, which is my main data set, only then give it to me. And then I have here mean weight and mean height, and I don't like the way it looks. So normally I would format it and I would say show me only two values or something like that. But we already saw an example of that format, variable name, format name, or the format that you want to apply to it. So you can do that here if you needed to. Okay. Next one I'm going to talk about is next one I want to talk to you about is updating. So this is another situation, and there's lots of ways to do this. Okay, so what I'm going to talk to you about, there's plenty of ways to do it, but this is one of them. Okay, this is called the update statement. So you're updating a master data set with information from a lookup data set. Okay, so that's what it's going to do, and you can't have duplicates in the values for the by group for this one to work. And obviously you're going to use the by group. That means the information has to be sorted by that by group. Okay, so information in the master, which is class, is going to be updated from the information from the lookup, which is the class loops. Okay, that's how this thing is. Okay, so let's take a look at it just to make sure we understand the data. First, if you go to class loops, it's got James, Judy, and Thomas, and they have altered values of height and weight compared and BMI for these three records compared to the work.class. So James, so let's pick one. Okay, let's pick James has height 62.3, 73, and 13.17. 62, 73, 13.17. So James has 57, 83, and 17.7. So there's different values in the class, which is my master data set, and different values. And so it seems James in the lookup data set has become more healthier. He's grown taller and he's lost some weight. Therefore, his BMI is also lower. Okay. So now I'm gonna update the information in my main data set saying James has lower BMI now. Okay. So to go back here, James has 13.7. I know that it was 17 before, so that's better. He had 83 before and he had 57 or something before. So um, that's that's the change. So it's taken the information from the uh, lookup data set, which is the smaller data set that I created, and updated the information in the master data set. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this one. Let me go. So I'm going to cover a couple of things. I think we've seen all of this. We've just not seen it in one place, which is the data set options. Um, so we saw all of this in so many different places, but I just want to talk about it in one place so it's covered, right? So there are some data set options that you can apply to data sets that you're reading, that you're writing, whatever. Okay. So in this case, again, there's a data set called SAS.cars. It's got a lot of variables. I only want to keep make and model. Okay. I don't want to keep all the other stuff. Meaning in my PDB, only those two variables are marked with K. Everything else is marked with D. Okay. So here you go. So go ahead and make and model. I want to read make and model from here, but this is a very trivial example, but perhaps you can think of something where I'm reading a value here. I've manipulated that value to create a second value, and I don't want to keep the original value anymore. Okay, and this happens in data manipulation a lot. You have a derived variable, but you don't want to keep the original variable. So in this case, I have make and model, but then let's say I had some code here which derived something out of make, and I don't want to keep make anymore. So I want to drop that. So you have a keep in the input, a drop in the output, which means this minus that. That's the only thing I'll get in my output data set. So in my cars, now I'm only going to have model. I don't have make. There you go. Then we saw, we haven't seen rename yet. So this is a new one. We've seen, I think we talked about OBS and first obs in proc print, if I remember right. So uh, first ob says, where do you want to start reading the data? Okay, start reading from the 10th observation. OBS says how much to go. So go up to the 20th observation. So if I did it like this, I'm going to go from the 10th observation to the 20th observation. Okay, and on top of that, I'm adding a where clause saying where MPG city is greater than 12. Okay, and then on top of that, this is all on the input side. On the output side, I'm saying keep only make and model. But I'm also saying rename make as company and model as name. Okay, so lots of things happening here. I'm keeping stuff. I'm subsetting the data based on first obs and obs, and also the where clause, and I'm eventually renaming the data. Okay. So instead of make model, now I see company and name. If you go to the log, it'll say 11 observations. Um, the data set has 11 observations. So this where clause really didn't subset anything. So 10 through 20 is 11 observations. I wonder how that works. Let me go look at sasab.cars. Yeah, I mean, it included 10 and 20, so that's why it's 11 observations. Okay. The Okay, so in this case, it starts at 10 and goes all the way to 20. So that's, if you include the 10th observation in it, it's it's 10th and the 20th, it's 11 observations. Okay, so that's how it came from there. Okay, all right, so that makes sense. Okay, so then the last